All right, what's up, guys? VV back with another video. And in today's video, guys, as you can see on the screen here, we've got ST14 Luffy to check out. 3D2Y Luffy. This is a leader that has actually been pretty... It did pretty decent over here in the West. Now, in the East, it did not do so well in OP08 like it did in the West because they were still dealing with red-purple law. Remember, guys, we're an entire 4 months behind the East. So when they were still deciding on whether or not to ban red-purple law, you know, we weren't even at that point yet in OP08. We were still in OP07. So they ended up banning it. And then over in the West, where we are, we caught up to them. Well, we didn't catch up, excuse me. Once we got to OP08, we never had to deal with red-purple law. So a lot of people went this leader, I think, as a result of that, so that they could battle more aggressively into the Lucci decks and things like that. Okay, but anyway, just a quick little history lesson on why you see this pop up in the West and not the East. Because I did have someone ask me about that in the comment section or on the Discord, like, hey, why did this leader not really pop up over in the East? It's because it was a pretty different meta because red-purple law was still active back then. Okay, all right, guys, let's do this. Let's dive into this video. This should be a fun one. Let me give you guys a quick breakdown, a quick layout for today's video. First up, we are going to be heading over to the VV Lab. We're going to be checking out a game of Red-Yellow Sabo versus Gecko. You guys know I love my Red-Yellow Sabo. After that, we're going to discuss the topic of the day. Guys, we're going to have to do our first part 2 of a topic of the day, where we're going to be talking about block rotations again. I'm going to be answering some comments that came up that I think are... I feel like some people are misunderstanding what block rotations do, and I kind of want to address that in today's topic of the day. And hopefully people don't take that the wrong way. I just really want to shed some light on some things I think were misconceptions, but we'll talk about that when we get to it. After that, we're going to head over to some sim games. We've got 3 games lined up on the sim, featuring the leader you see on the screen here, ST14 Luffy. And then, of course, we'll finish out with the deck list, and I'll give my final thoughts on it, and we'll wrap it up in that way. Okay, guys? All right, you know what you get into. As usual, I'll have everything timestamped down in the general description. I'll have all relevant deck lists and links down in the comment section below. And yeah, let's do this, guys. Let's get into it. As usual, too, guys, if you guys have any questions, please do not hesitate to ask down in the comment section below. Now, let's get into it. Got to remove the leader screen here. First up, we have a game of Red-Yellow Sabo versus Gecko. Now, this is the VV Lab, and for any new listeners out there, any new players out there who are tuning in for the first time, first of all, welcome to the channel. And second of all, you might be wondering, what is this? What is the VV Lab? Well, these are community-submitted games. So this is not me playing what we're about to watch, this first game here. This is a community-submitted game where they kind of just want me to review how they did and just kind of give my own perspective on the match while I commentate over it. And it works as like a miniature free coaching session. So if you're interested in me reviewing one of your games, no problem. It's very easy to set up. It's like a 3-step process, though. First, you have to, record your game. And then after that, you have to upload it to YouTube. And after you upload it to YouTube, you hop on the VV Theory Discord. I've got the channel link in the channel description. Or I've got the Discord link in the channel description. And I have a channel called Review My Game. Okay? That's where you'll post the link to the YouTube video. And I check it about once or twice a day. As soon as I see it, I give it the thumbs up, and you get thrown in line. And whenever it's your turn, it's your turn. Very easy to set up. And as you can see, guys, I block the names out. I block the chat out, so you don't have to be concerned with anything like that. Okay? All right, let's do this, guys. Let's get into it. All right, so the volume is off. The speed is on 2x. The quality is as high as it will go for this video. And here we go, guys. So we have a game here. Oh, actually, hang on real quick. Let's see. So it looks like the Sabo player won the dice roll, and they are going to choose to go first. So we have a game here of Red-Yellow Sabo versus Gecko Moria. And, guys, this is my #1 go-to deck right now. This is the deck that I play the most. I put the most time into. I absolutely love playing Red-Yellow Sabo. Now, Gecko Moria is actually not seen very often. That leader has kind of fallen off lately. But, of course, there's always going to be the people who are loyal to a certain leader, and they just want to play that, and I totally get that. So they're going to start off with a brand. We had no turn 1, and we have no turn 2. They had a turn 1 brand new, and we swing for 8 on our turn 2. The Sabo player does, straight into the Gecko Moria. And without even seeing this game, guys, so understand, I do not pre-watch these games. If I had to guess the next play, because we're going to have 5 Dawn next turn, it's going to be use the Gecko, use the Gadatsu in hand to pop whatever they play this turn. But it is only a Rebecca, so let's see if we actually want... Okay, nice. Now we have a real target. That is something we'll be able to take out very easily, I think. Okay, swing for 5. I think we should counter out using the Lindbergh. Very nice. So right here, 5 into the Brook. No, I think 5 into the Brook's the right call. Absolutely. 5 into Brook. Let's see what happens. They're going to 2K counter out. Beautiful. And now we can follow up with the Gadatsu. Absolutely. That was the perfect play. You got a card out of their hand. You got the card off the field they wanted to protect. We developed the 5-call 6K body on tempo. And now things are looking very good. Now, they do have a good follow-up with Sakazuki, but that's going to trash a card from hand. They're going to be able to swing it for 5 here. I think we can actually probably take this. I mean, we can counter out with the Nekomamushi. I like taking it, but unfortunately it was a Land of Wano trigger card that we lost out on. Not a big deal, though. I don't think that was necessarily a play mistake. I also would have taken that. Okay, let's swing for 7. You love to see it. Absolutely. Let's see if he takes this or blocks. He has a blocker as well. And that does complicate things if he's going to use the... if he's not going to take... Nice. Okay, that was very good for us because now we can play out the Kikinojo, attach a Dawn, put it into life. Beautiful. That could not have worked out any better for us. And understand, if they attack in and they remove our Kikinojo afterwards, that's still completely fine because we get to gain the life right back. We soak up an attack, and we're good to go. Okay, it looks like they're not going to be able to, at least from what I'm seeing right now. I don't know how they'd be able to remove it now. So that's a really good thing for us. That means they're going to attack in. We're going to get the Kikinojo, and we can go from there. Okay, are they not going to attack? Okay, that scared me. I would take this one because they still only have a 5K attack left from the leader. We get the trigger. Now swing for 5. I would use the Neko here. That's a great call. I really agree with the call that they chose. I think that was the best play there. Okay, we're on our 9 Dawn turn. They're down to 3 life. They have a full board, though, and we can actually start pretty aggressively running into this board if we want to. Because we can go 7 into this guy, get a card out of hand. Yep. Or we can go at face. Okay, that's another option. If I were the Gecko, I would take this. So I think the Gecko Moria should absolutely take this. Let's see if they actually choose to or not. Okay, so that means they have Gecko Moria next turn, right? So since they took it, it does tell us something. They're probably going to use a Gecko Moria because they're trying to clear up space on their board. Whereas going down to 2 life would have actually been very nice for them. Going down to 2 life would have been nice. They would have gone from a 4-card hand to a 5-card hand, and they still have 2 blockers on the field. So we'll have to see what they do. Yeah, so it looks like our Sabo players messing with their Dawn, seeing how they can do this. Attach a Dawn, very nice. Smash in for 8. See, now this is where they should have used the blocker, but now they're going to get punished. They should use the Sabo at this point unless they have no Gecko Moria in hand. I'm so confused, guys. I'm actually just perplexed right now. So push the Kikinojo back to life. Very good. Let's see what the Gecko Moria player does here. Wow, okay, yeah, so see, the whole time they had the Gecko Moria in hand. I'm so confused. Or do they not? Hang on, that's 2 Dawn. They're going to swing for 5. Yeah, I think we should try to... Oh, we don't have really any good counter power here. Maybe take this. Yeah, I agree. I wouldn't use a 2K there. Very good. So, let's see what... They have 8 Dawn left. If they play out a Gecko Moria, they actually blundered last turn, not blocking with the Sabo. Okay. Just waiting on the Gecko Moria player to make up his mind now, guys. We have to see what's happening. And remember, guys, this is in 2x speed. So this person is deep in the tank. No Gecko Moria follow-up. That is wild. I really wish I could see their hand right now. Maybe they just didn't draw it. That does happen. Sometimes you just don't draw it. But if that's the case, he needs to use this turn here to trash card, get Hog back, play out Hog back, and pull out a Gecko from his trash. Absalom popping that, giving us a life. We'll take it. Countering out. Okay, yeah, because we still have 1 more hit we're going to take for sure this turn from the Sakazuki. But let's see how aggressive they choose to get with this brand new. Because they can swing 7-7. I agree with that. I think that's how I would have dealt with it too. Okay, play out. Nice. We got a Nekomamushi there and a Lindbergh. We'll take it, guys. We will take that. Okay, so trash. Hang on a second. Let me pause. I don't think we necessarily had to get rid of the Fire Fist there. So I think we actually could have tried to go for lethal here, believe it or not. Because I think so one option, you didn't have to do this, obviously. This is just another play that we could have done. It might have been slightly more optimal. We could have used Fire Fist this turn. So in other words, what just happened? So to play the Lindbergh, we could just trash a Luffy. We have 3 rush cards in hand. We do not need all those rushers. So we could trash the Luffy there, and then watch this. We could go, okay, so our turn, right? So we should, let me let them untap real quick. Boom. Okay, so here's our 10 Dawn turn, right? So we have 10 Dawn right here to work with. We could attach 2 to the Lindbergh. We can do a Fire Fist on the Sabo to drop him down to 2,000 power. And then we can swing 7 into the Gecko, popping the Sabo. And now it would come down to, like, if they counter out, then we just go for the board, right? Because they'll have one card left in hand. Just eat the board up, gain a life, and we're sitting pretty, right? We're in a good spot. However, getting rid of the Fire Fist doesn't give us that extra option. And that's where I think trashing a Monkey D. Luffy would have been a slightly better play. Just like ever so slightly better play there. A little more optimal. Not a big deal, though. I think we're still in a very good position here. Yeah, we can smash into here for 7, maybe 8 to get out of the block plus 2K. Let's see if they choose to do Sabo here plus 2K. They might just let it go. I just find it hard to believe they don't have a single Gecko Moria yet. That's really strange. So they might let it go for that reason. We'll see what happens. Okay, gonna go for 5. Let's see what's happening here. Are we trying to... I'm not sure. I'm not sure what happened right there. So we'll swing 6 into 6 here. Very nice. We got that card out of the way. We'll swing this guy. Push them. Very good. 10 into 7. That card's gone. No way, right? Unless they have double 2Ks to get out of this? No way. Yeah. And now we have an 8,000 power body, which is a very hard target to attack into. It's going to be easier to remove that with something like some type of Absalom effect plus Ice Age or something. So let's see what happens here. And I like that the Absalom is still alive, so they can't pull it out of the trash. Unless they have another one they can pull out of trash. Okay, so here we go. It is back to the Gecko Moria. And guys, just to give an example on the time discrepancy between both players, right now the Gecko Moria player is on 9 minutes and 10 seconds left on their timer on the sim, and we're still on 13:30 as the Red Yellow Sabo player. So we're clearly doing much better on the time area, so that means we're having to put less thought into it, which is a good thing, right? It's more natural to the Red Yellow Sabo player, whereas the Gecko player is having to do a lot more mental gymnastics to get to this point. Okay, yeah, I like letting that go, because please attack in, we'll get the card right back. Now, we can't pop these Sabos, right? We're not going to be able to pop these Sabos, but let's see what happens. I don't think we're in any jeopardy of losing the game right here. We'll go 5 into 5, daring them to use the blocker. I think 6 might have been a little bit better there, just a little bit safer. But, hey, that's okay. We still have 6 and 4 left. Looks like they're divvying up their Dawn here. I always wonder what people are doing when I see them use... I mean, I know how they're doing it. You use right-click on the Dawn to, like, push it out like this. But I'm always wondering, like, what's going... the thought process going through their mind here. Okay, are we thinking about attaching 2 to the leader? Swing for 7. This is probably going to take... They'll probably take this. But there is a Luffy on the board, so that's kind of scary. Yeah, blocking it, I actually agree with that. Because you know that we're going to be able to pull this Luffy through without even having to... They won't even be able to block it. Okay, here we go. Swinging in for 9. Swinging in for 9 with the Kid and Killer. I think... So hear me out, guys. I think you just have to... So, pause. I mean, I don't know if there's any way for this Gecko Moria to win right here, but I think they maybe should have just taken it and just go for something next turn to clear out the board with your bodies, because I'm telling you, like, this is a situation where you're up against the ropes. Like, just go down to 0 life here with your 2 blockers, or at least one of the blockers, and then see if you can try to do something on the crackback. Because theoretically, you could remove the Luffy and remove the Lindbergh here and just block her up and take, just block out of your life at the 0. But now, see, we know that there's a Luffy in hand. There's just no way out of this. They're in deep, deep trouble. Gecko Moria, there he is. Okay, we finally see a Gecko Moria appear randomly. But how are you going to stop these 2 attacks? That becomes the question. Okay, so you see what's happening here. He's going to do a top 3 search with the brand new. He's going to see if he can get a 2K counter without a doubt. There's no doubt in my mind he's going for a 2K counter. And let's see what he gets. So they popped the Luffy with Absalom. They drew a Kuzan. That's not a 2K counter. So that means deep, deep trouble for our opponent. That means we can swing for 9, swing for 11. It's going to be GG. Aggressively countering out. That was correct, and now the game's over. This is a math win here, guys. So just swing for 9, because we know that's the most they can have. Okay, well, we're going to swing for 6. That's fine, too. We do have a Luffy. We do have a Luffy in hand, so we can go for more. So now the most they can have in hand is a 2K. We know they don't have that. Play this guy out, and then swing for 8. So we actually could have swung for 9, believe it or not, if we attached a Dawn to the Lindbergh, push him to life, give +2 to the Luffy, and then the remaining Dawn on the Luffy and swing for 9, and then we know he can't get out of that. But let's see if he can get out of it. Nope, okay. You see 1K, and you know he can't get out because he needed both to be 2Ks because we knew about the Kuzan. That was an awesome game. Really good submission there. Some small technicality things here and there, but I think that was actually really well piloted. Really good job there. Good stuff. You love to see Red Yellow Sabo, guys. That's every day's a good day when it's a Red Yellow Sabo day. Okay, give me a second to get set up, guys, and we will head over to the topic of the day. Okay, let me just go ahead and put this all up real quick while I clear out the background. Y'all give me just a moment. All right. Oh yeah, I gotta set this up. I gotta bring up the comments today, guys. Like I said, it's just something we gotta talk about. It is definitely something we gotta talk about. Okay, here we go. So guys, oh yeah, I gotta move my camera too. That would help. So I'm going to go through a few comments, and I did block out the names because I'm not trying to target anyone. That's never my intent, but I thought these were really good comments that I wanted to address. So guys, understand the tone, understand what we're going for in this segment today, with the topic of the day being block rotations part 2, addressing certain comments. These are not meant to be attacks. This is just meant to be like just a back and forth conversation of like, okay, here's how I feel about what they said, because I think some people had some really good points that I want to address, okay? All right, so let's do this, guys. Let's keep an open mind. Let's really think about this. So the first, I'm going to read through it. I'm going to read through the entire thing first, then we're going to address it, okay? Blocks seem awful for both casual and competitive play. Look at the current meta. If you rotate out year 1 blue Dofi, there might be some punctuation errors probably, guys, because this is just a YouTube comment, right? We're not trying to be too picky. Okay, but I am picky about my camera, so we do have to adjust that. Okay. Now, if you rotate out year 1, blue Dofi ceases to exist. Black-yellow Luffy loses black Sabo, and black Lucci loses half of the CP archetype. Bonnie loses most of its top end, 8 cost Kid and 10 cost Dofi, and its Searcher. Calgara loses half the Sky Island package, etc. On top of that, telling people, especially casual players, they can't play with their cards is an easy way of pushing people out of your game. Magic is a great example of that. Commander is so popular because people can play fresh ideas with their old cards that rotated out years ago that are buffed by new support. And for people like me, limiting my creativity is an easy way to get me to quit. Finding new techs and innovating my lists from set to set is where I find my fun. Arlong is my favorite deck. I like Arlong as well, because each set, I find something new I can add to it. If it rotates out, I lose that fun aspect of the game. So we're going to dissect this one line by line because this is a great comment. Understand that, guys. This is a great comment, but I think there's some misconceptions in here. So understanding how blocks work. So this person said blocks seem awful for both casual and competitive play. Well, you have to understand it's actually very beneficial for both casual and competitive play, because a casual example is mentioned here in the actual description, right? Where the person said Magic is a great example of that. Commander is so popular because people can play fresh ideas with their old cards that rotated out years ago that are buffed by new support. You see what's going on, right? Commander would not exist if it were not for block rotations. You guys understand where I'm coming from? Block rotations are what give way to these really interesting, cool new play modes, these new game modes like Commander, okay? And those should exist in One Piece as well over time. Remember guys, One Piece is still very, very young. We're only going into year 3 now, okay? The game is still very young. But without rotations, we wouldn't have Commander. And Commander's amazing. Like this person said, man, Commander's so awesome. It's so popular. Honestly, guys, I think it's like the one thing that's keeping Magic the Gathering alive right now. Let's just be honest. Commander, and it's not the only thing. I'm trying not to be, I'm trying to be fair. But you guys know what I mean. Commander's very interesting, very cool, and it really rewards players, creative players, and who want to play with these old cards like this person's saying. Okay. And another thing, too, I want to mention one more thing before we move on from that point right there, because we're going to keep going with this. I want to talk about a few more things. When it comes to Commander, when it comes to Magic, I do understand that Magic is a way larger game, guys. Like, it's not even in this, like, it is just way bigger than One Piece right now. And that's okay. It's the original TCG, right? The game is over 30 years old. Or something like, it's right around 30 or 30-something years old. So we have to take that into consideration. Yes, that game has a much larger player base, so they can have on a Friday night a Commander pod firing off while having Friday Night Magic in Standard or whatever people are playing now, Modern or whatever they might be playing at your locals. One Piece is not there yet. I understand, it's not there yet, but we're talking about over time is when this would be implemented anyway with the block rotations. I'm not suggesting right now. I'm suggesting in the future. Okay. So let me go past to the next part here. So if you rotate out year 1, so here we go. Here are some legitimate concerns this player has. If you rotate out year 1 blue Dofi, if you rotate out year 1, Blue Dofi ceases to exist. Black Yellow Luffy loses Black Sabo, and Black Lucci loses half of the CP archetype. Bonnie loses most of its top end, 8 cost and 10 cost Dofi and its Searcher, and Calgara loses half the Sky Island package, etc. Well, see, a lot of people are probably thinking, first of all, like, that sounds great to me. So these leaders will no longer be viable. That's a thumbs up for many, many people. Like, let's just keep an open mind to that. However, just to address the concerns, because I think they're legitimate, here's the thing. They could very easily just reprint those in the next set that's coming out. You see what I'm trying to say? They could actually just fully reprint every card that was mentioned there. Literally the exact same card. And yes, I know some people might be thinking like, yeah, but then that's taking up new card spots. Well, every game does that. Every game that deals with the rotations, they will reprint staple cards. So that's actually not even a problem, right? If it's dealt with correctly. I understand. Let's remain fair. Let's remain open-minded. I'm not saying that Bandai would do a perfect job of this. No TCG truly can. But they could very easily solve those issues. One more that I want to mention, and this might have been an oversight from the poster, the original commenter. They say Calgara loses half of the Sky Island package, etc. No, I think all of it's gone, right? Because Enel came out in OP05, I believe. Is that correct, guys? We will bring that up real quick. I do have it in the background here. So let me just go. Sorry, guys, that probably blinded people. I know it blinded me. So let's go to Enel real quick. Go to yellow, and I just want to see something. So here we go. Yes, so Enel came out in OP05. Calgara came out in OP08. I'm looking it up just for everybody, just to kind of show. Calgara, notice at the bottom here, guys, OP08. So that wouldn't be an issue either, right? So in other words, every one of these Sky Island cards would be rotated out simultaneously. Like there wouldn't be any like, oh no, only half of the leader pool is viable and the other half is not, or something like that. No, it's all gone at one time. So that one would just disappear. Whoops, sneak peek at the what's coming up there. Sorry, guys. There we go. So that issue just actually ceases to exist, right? There wouldn't be a problem with Calgara because all of the Sky Island package is block 2. There might be some new stuff coming out in OP09. We'll have to see. But currently, this would not. It's a non-issue, right? Because they just all rotate out at the same time. And then if they liked the way Calgara was for standard, well, no problem. Then they could print new cards for Sky Island, print new leaders and new cards like that. What else? On top of that, telling people, especially casual players, they can't play with their cards is an easy way of pushing people out of your game. But I don't want to do that, right? That would open the way for new game modes to pop up. Like what you mentioned here, Magic is a great example of that. I won't go through that thing again. Just know, for the casual players, a Commander-style game mode would be absolutely perfect for the casual players. By the way, I do have a little sneak peek, or a little spoiler. I am working on messing with an alternate game mode that I do want to introduce to the community very soon. Probably about a month away. But I have something that I think a lot of the Commander players would really enjoy. Again, be patient with that. That is something I want to probably make into an entire series that I've been working on with one of my friends, my buddy Mike. We've been working on a whole new game mode that I think a lot of people are going to really enjoy. We'll see if it takes off. And guys, if it's not, if it doesn't take off, then it doesn't take off. But I think it's something that could really be this game's version of, like, Commander. I think it'd be pretty interesting. Hold your horses on that. Like I said, I got a little bit, I'm still working out the kinks on that. Okay. What else? Real quick, so Commander's so popular because people can play fresh ideas with their old cards that rotate out years ago with the new support. Absolutely. And that's why I think block rotations have to exist, right? Because you can't have Commander without block rotations. Instead, you just have standard. And a lot of people, I didn't mention this in the last video, and I know some people were already feeling it. If you don't introduce rotations, there's typically only 1 or 2 good decks, right, that go around once you get that far into a game, like 25 years into a game's, core card base, where, number one, you end up just banning the cards people want to play. Like, that's one option, is cards just get banned, and no one wants that. But then the other thing is, like, you have about, let's just say you have like 4 or 5 really good decks. Well, 4 or 5 good decks out of 20 years of a card pool is horrible, right? Because you're talking about, like, probably, if there's 200 cards a set, I think there's probably closer to 150 in One Piece. So let's just say there's like 150 cards per set in One Piece. Well, for 1 year, okay, so it's going to be 4 sets, right? So 150 plus 150 is 300, times 2 is 600. So 600 cards are coming out bare minimum every year. So you push that out over 10 years, that's 6,000 cards. And it is more than that, by the way, because you got to count the starter decks, the special releases, EB stuff, EB01 stuff, PRB type stuff. But there's like 6,000 cards over the course of 10 years. And if you have access to all of these cards, and there's only one format where it's like just standard, well, then only like 10, only about 5, maybe 10 leaders are going to get used out of that, out of 6,000 cards. It becomes a nightmare, I feel like, over time. And that's where I think that it's really important to use the block rotation model. Okay, now let's finish out this one. Don't worry, guys. This one had the most to talk about in it, and we'll spend the most time talking about this one comment. Great comment again. Please don't think I'm attacking this person, or if you're the person who wrote it, don't think I'm attacking you. I thought this was a great comment with really good points, but I do think there were some misconceptions. I think what seemed like issues, they're not actually issues when handled properly. It's very, very easy to solve them. But it does require, things to be handled properly, of course. So Magic is a great example. Now let me go to the end here. For people like me, limiting my creativity is an easy way to get me to quit. Finding new techs and innovating my list from set to set is where I find my fun. Me too, man. Hey, absolutely. You're talking to a deck builder, right? Like this entire channel is deck building, rogue decks, and trying out new things. I'm right there with you. However, in the current standard format of the game, we just can't do that. It's just not even an option. You just play what's meta for the most part, or something that's just off meta, and you're kind of stuck there. Whereas if we opened up a whole new format like Commander, and I'm not saying it has to be Commander, something like Commander, where we have access to all the sets over time, we, the really intense deck builders, people who take pride in their deck building skills, we get this entire format to ourselves. Like, this is like our playground. This is where we love to play, and it's what we end up playing with our friends on the side, right? Whereas the more competitive players, they still get to go hard. They get to sweat over their cards every single time and go to like the big, the tournaments and do as good as they can, playing just like the most competitive top 5 decks in the format. And they get to have a balanced standard version. Okay, and then they mentioned Arlong. Very, I love Arlong as well. So just to summarize, one thing I do want to say before we move on from this list is a lot of the things that I saw people complaining about when it came to or bringing up issues. I don't want to say complaining or whining or anything like that, but a lot of the things they were talking about having an issue with, they seemed like more of a selfish thing where it's like, well, me, I need this, this, and this. And please don't take that the wrong way. I'm only concerned with the future of the game in its entirety. So, hey, I'm right there with you. I don't want to lose access to any of my cards. Okay, I have every card, right? I don't do the alt arts, but I don't want to lose access to any of my cards. However, if Bandai determines, hey, we need to remove this card from the game for the good of the game, I'm all behind it. I'm 100%. I'm not. They don't always make the best decisions. Granted, I totally trust me. I do not think they make the best decisions. However, I do just want to say that I do want the game to be healthy in the long term, and I think that's what we need to do as players. Like, let's step back and try to be as selfless as possible. Because here's the thing. Say they don't introduce block rotations in the future, and I don't know if they will. Understand that too. I didn't say they will. I said they set up for it because of the block rotation number at the bottom right corner. Say they don't implement block rotations in the future, and the game becomes unplayable, especially for new players. Like, new players stop showing up, and say stuff like that happens. Like with Yu-Gi-Oh! Remember, guys, in the graphic I showed in the last video, Yu-Gi-Oh! Is starting to fall really far behind in sales. Is it still seeing big tournaments? Yes, because there's diehard Yu-Gi-Oh! Players that have been playing the game for 20 years. But new players going into Yu-Gi-Oh!, that's a sight to behold, right? That's almost like an oxymoron. New players in Yu-Gi-Oh! I'm not saying they don't exist, but it's very hard to find them. Whereas in One Piece and some of these other games, even in Magic, you still see new players popping up. As crazy as that sounds. And that's very easy to do, right? Because they have so many different formats for new players, casual players to get into. And if you did want to go serious in the game as a new player, you just go straight to Standard, right? You could go just, and I understand Standard is still getting back on its feet since before the pandemic, but it's built in a way so that new players can re-enter the game. And hey, if you're just a casual player trying to get into the game, you can make one of these really fun, kooky Commander decks and have fun with that. You know what I mean? So that's all I'm trying to say. I just want to really stress that up front, guys. Let's try to be selfless with it, because if we're not, and the game just keeps getting crazier and crazier, bigger card pool, and no rotations happen, and you're starting to scare off the old players, and then the new players are trying to get in, and there's like 10 years worth of cards they have to catch up on, it becomes a recipe for disaster. Okay, so hopefully that made sense. Now, let's go on to the next comment. That was a great comment, by the way. Please, again, don't take anything I said the wrong way. Was not trying to be aggressive or offensive or anything like that. I just wanted to point out some of the points. I wanted to really highlight some of the points here that seemed like they were a little bit like misunderstood. Or maybe I misunderstood them, but they seemed like the comments misunderstood how rotations could be handled in the correct way. Okay, next up here. Can y'all see this good? I didn't really check. Yeah, I can't really zoom in, guys, because, well, actually I can. I probably should have zoomed in on the last one, guys. Let me do that. If someone wants to like pause and like take a screenshot to read this or pause it and read it, that's fine. So that was the last one. So here's the next one we're on. I'll zoom in as good as I can over here so you guys can see it. Okay, perfect. Okay, so this comment here. One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh player here. The reason why I like Yu-Gi-Oh so much is because of a lack of rotation. I can pick up an old deck and add new cards to it and make it as competitive as they possibly can, right? As possible. The problem with Yu-Gi-Oh, I think, has been their power creep and especially rarity distribution. Okay, interesting. I don't know anything about Yu-Gi-Oh, so again, I'm not saying this is the case. This is what someone else said. Konami has stated they don't short print cards. Yet their rarity tier system for main sets has really hindered the prices of staple cards. Okay? We're talking cards that are only available as secrets going for $120 a copy that you need 3 of versus One Piece where sure there are secrets, but they only reach those prices the older they get and don't receive reprints. But notice that One Piece has different rarities for budget players and alts for those that are that want to bling out. The rarity system used to exist in Yu-Gi-Oh, but changed about 8 years ago, which is honestly a shame. That's why I have gravitated towards One Piece. And honestly, because I can at least have a turn or 2 or 3 rather than being dead before my turn even starts. I've heard about the nightmares of like turn 1 OTKs or turn 2 OTKs in Yu-Gi-Oh, guys. I can tell you right now, if One Piece ever hit that level, I'm out. I'm fully checked out. It will be, I'll be gone pretty much instantly. I'll make a YouTube video talking about it. We'll be on to the next game until they fix it. So real quick, I just want to go to the top here. One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh player here. They said the reason that they like Yu-Gi-Oh so much is because of the lack of rotation. But you have to understand, you know those OTK combos we're talking that were just mentioned there? Those are very easy to keep out of the game with rotations, right? Because if you have access to all the cards, it's just a matter of time, right, guys? It's just a matter of time before a game gets broken when the card pool, goes from like 1,000 cards to 10,000 cards to 20,000 cards to 30 and so on. It becomes almost impossible for a designer to balance, and that's not anyone's fault. That's just impossible to balance at that point, or you're just reprinting cards that are safe and legal, and why would people buy the new cards that are just old cards reprinted in a safe way? So in order to really stop late game or late development power creep, like what's being mentioned here with these cards that become extremely broken, like where you're just going OTK, going crazy and just winning on turn 1 or 2, well, that's very easy to fix. You just enter a block rotation, and now all those cards are gone, right? At least over time, all those cards are just gone. And I don't know everything about Yu-Gi-Oh, so please don't misunderstand me. I'm not pretending like I'm an expert on Yu-Gi-Oh, but I would like to consider myself someone who's pretty competent with the ideas behind game design and things like that. And one day I do want to make my own card game. Now's not the time for that, but hopefully in the future I'll be able to make my own card game with some type of company or something like that. That is a long-term ambition of mine. That is a long-term goal that I'd like to achieve at some point. Now back to this comment, though, just to kind of finish up on it. One Piece and Yu-Gi-Oh player here. One thing I noticed, and someone correct me if I'm wrong, it seemed like the Magic players and the Pokemon players, sorry guys, the Magic and Pokemon players seemed pretty much okay with the idea of rotations because that's what they're used to. And let's be fair, those are the oldest games as well, and I think there's a reason they're doing so well while remaining so old, and it is specifically because of the rotation system. Because what it did, the rotation system allows the competitive player base to be completely appeased and to be happy and to stay competitive, right? But for the casual players, it opened up brand new game modes. I don't know about for Pokemon, but for Magic in particular, it opened up a ton of new different cool game modes. Now with Yu-Gi-Oh, I do understand. I've heard there are other game modes, but at the same time, I know that Yu-Gi-Oh is not exactly doing the greatest it's ever done as far as like numbers go. At tournaments, maybe that's misleading because they are getting really big tournament, attendance. But if you're not getting new players, that's almost like a false sense of security, right? It's almost like a false sense of success because, like, well, if no new players are coming in, and again, someone correct me if I'm wrong. If there are new players, I'm not trying to be mean or anything. Like I said, I just don't see it. And I know that like it's hard to get new players into the game because it's so overwhelming to get into like a huge format. However, for old players returning, I like what this person said here. I can pick up an old deck and add new cards to it and make it as competitive as possible. That is a good point. Like that's actually a good point. But at the same time, That's also scary for someone like myself. If you're telling me that if I left the game right now, One Piece, going not Yu-Gi-Oh, going to One Piece now. So let's say I leave the game tomorrow, which I have no plans on doing. No worries. Don't worry, guys. But if I left One Piece tomorrow and I come back in 6 years, let's just say 5 or 6 years, right? And Lucci is still the deck winning for black, I'm going to have my concerns, right? It's like, wait a minute. What do you mean Lucci's still winning? And I mean the same leader, right? Because that's what's being implied here, right? The same cards are doing well. I actually am not a big fan of that idea. I'm okay when there are a few staples that really pop off, they do well, and they should be reprinted from set to set because they define a core characteristic of what the designers want a color to represent. I'm completely fine with that. But if you tell me right now that I can pick up a old deck that I just put away, like let's just say I put it away tonight, like a Lucci deck currently, and then in 10 years I hop back into the game, or in 6 years, 10 years, 15 years I hop into the game, and it's still competing with all the other decks and things like, and in fact, especially if it was still the best deck, I don't want any part of that, guys. I'm going to be honest. And I think that's where block rotations are extremely important, because that's number one. Like, this idea, I understand there's an investment idea in this, but that's not even sustainable for the game, right? For the game developers. It's like, wait a minute. So you're telling me that if they just add a few new cards to their deck, their old decks are still viable? Well, think about, I don't know. I don't want to get too much into the financial side of it, but in my mind, I'm thinking, man, if I'm a developer, there's no way I'm going to let that happen, because they can just leave, like you're saying, not support the game for how many years, and then come back and just use the same deck they had, just add a few new cards to it, and now it's competitive. I don't know. Maybe I might have misunderstood that part, but again, great question. I don't want to spend too much time on it, but I just want to say that I don't think... it seems like there's two different kinds of players, right? The people that want the old cards to last forever, and then the people, like, that's what a lot of the people we're seeing here are talking about. And then there's players like me where it's like, well, no, I do want to see new cards come up. Yeah, I do enjoy the idea of power creep, especially when it is being controlled properly in the context of rotations, you know, being able to help out with especially with the newness of the game on a standard competitive level. So, again, maybe the difference is between casual and competitive players, or maybe the difference is in, like I said, cost-conscious players versus players who just want to see the new cards. I have no idea what. That needs its own, like, psychological study, right? That could be really cool. But great comment. Again, let's keep going, though. I don't want to harp too much on that one. All right, let me zoom in and make sure you guys can see it. Okay, so the next one. Not a fan of multiple formats or blocks. This makes new players learning the game much worse. You have to go through what cards are allowed and not allowed versus just following a ban list. Returning players also can use old cards if they happen to take breaks. Again, we just talked about that, guys. That's in my opinion, that's actually an issue. But to each their own, right? Logically, power creep will rotate a lot of cards naturally. But having access to niche old cards make deck building much more appealing. Okay, very good. So, great question again. I just want to say this. Not a fan of multiple formats or blocks. This makes new players learning the game much worse. So that's not technically true, right? In fact, I would argue that's the opposite of true. That might just be a false statement. New players getting into a game with 30 years of cards to catch up on, that's asking too much. It's overwhelming. And I think that's why we're starting to see a price drop in certain stores for Yu-Gi-Oh! Because where are the new players at? Why would they ever... As a new player, if you're a new TCG player, a new TCG enthusiast, and you're trying to get into a game, what would you rather do? Get into a game where you have to get through 20 years of cards, or get through a game that has block rotations where it's just 2 years out? And I think that's just completely obvious, right? Like, that you go straight to the game that has that. Unless it's just all about gameplay, then it's going to come down to you trying each game, and it's going to depend on what game you like the most. But again... the next part here, you have to go through what cards are allowed and not allowed versus just following a ban list. Well, if it's a new player, they don't have to go through cards that are not allowed, right? Because they just buy the newest sets that have come out recently. So they're actually not stuck on that at all. And then when people, you know, if they do have to get really technical, like, oh, can I buy one of these old cards? You just have to know, like, okay, this is not in the rotation. And it's very easy to know it's in the rotation because there's the little devil fruits. Be like, no, make sure whenever you buy a card, it's in set 3, 4, and 5, or whatever the blocks are. I think that's pretty easy, as opposed to having to, you know, to look up a ban list. Because how big is the ban list going to be? I don't know how big the ban list is in Yu-Gi-Oh! But if the ban list is like 20, 30 plus cards, it starts getting pretty overwhelming, right? That's a lot for a new player to look up. But at the same time, if you just tell them, like, yeah, just stick to the devil fruits 4, 5, 6, and 7, well, now they just know, okay, cool, I can just look it up like that. And that way they can search it up in that way as well, right? They can literally just search the cards in a database. So this makes, like, saying a statement like this makes new players learning the game much worse. That is an opinion at best, right? Because for me, that does not apply. If I were a new player in Yu-Gi-Oh! And you told me, oh, all you have to do is stick to this ban list, I'm like, what do you mean the ban list? Why are their cards banned? You know, like, why are we not going through rotations where the banned cards are gone? Like, why don't we, like, why aren't entire sets banned yet, right? Like, if the game is 20-something, or I think Yu-Gi-Oh! Is 25 years old or somewhere right around there, it's like, wait a minute, so you're telling me there are cards still legal from the beginning of the game? So, as a new player, I'm at a disadvantage for the rest of my life because I didn't start playing the game 20 years ago. And it's like, whereas if you're playing Magic in Standard, you're only ever going to be 2 years behind for just 2 years. Then you're caught up with every new player, and you're always playing with the same amount of cards from then on. So I think, again, saying that this makes new players learning the game much worse, I'm not trying to be too aggressive with this statement, but that is an opinion at most, right? That, you know, you're entitled to it, of course. Everyone has their own opinion, but saying it like, and there might be a language barrier, because when I was reading the bottom here, there might be a language barrier, but saying this makes new players learning the game much worse, I don't think that's true. It might make it much worse for some new players, but for other new players like me entering a game, that's why I got into One Piece, right? I was like, okay, cool, you know, hopping into this game, I didn't want to have to deal with going back 20 years of Magic, right? Or excuse me, in my case, so I started playing Magic in 07 or 08. And when I got into that game, it took 2 years for me to get caught up. And I was in, man. I was dialed in. I was feeling good. I was performing very well. I was making my own decks and doing very good at a local level. But then, getting back into a game, it's like, so my first go-to, it was like, there's no way I'm playing Yu-Gi-Oh! Because of all the cards. And there's no way I'm playing Pokemon because I thought that's a little... Don't take this the wrong way, guys, but I didn't like Pokemon because I just thought I didn't like how it is. It seems a little... it seems like it's geared to the youngest crowd, okay? That just seems weird for me. I'm sorry. And hey, if you love that game, that's perfect. I'm not judging anyone for what they play. It was weird for me to want to do it. I didn't really want to do that. I wanted a game that was a little more mature looking. And I was going to go back to Magic at first. I was going to play Magic or this new game called Flesh and Blood, right? It was new to me, and it was only like 5 years old. However, when I decided to get back into the new games, the tie became between Flesh and Blood, Lorcana, and One Piece. Well, just like I said with Pokemon, Lorcana was out for me because it seemed a little too young for me. And again, I'm not judging anyone who plays these games. Just for me, I was like, no, that seems like it's geared towards a younger audience. I'd rather stick to these other two options, One Piece and Flesh and Blood. Flesh and Blood was definitely a big... I was really considering going into Flesh and Blood, but it had other issues. The main issue with Flesh and Blood is it just seems so expensive. Whereas One Piece was new, I was like, wow, and I don't even have to learn about all the new cards coming out because I'm coming in OP02. I just have to go one step back. So it kind of took the, you know, it was easy for me. It was an easy decision at that point. So in other words, I think, yes, there are tons of factors that contribute to you wanting to get into a game, but the number one factor for me is how far back do I have to study to get caught up with the meta? And maybe that's me being a more competitive player. I'm not sure. Because I'm actually just I'm like a casual competitive hybrid player. But I think that might have to do with what I'm doing as a YouTube comment creator. Or content creator. Okay, you have to go through what cards are allowed and not allowed versus just following a ban list. Well, you still have to go through what cards are allowed and not allowed in a ban list. Right? The ban list are cards that are allowed, or that are not allowed, and then everything else is allowed, right? Okay, so that's still... Now you have to go through just thousands and thousands of cards. It becomes overwhelming for a lot of new players. Returning players also can use old cards if they happen to take breaks. Well, that's also true in block rotations, right? So they can't just use any card, but any card that is reprinted, you would be able to use in standard for in block rotations. And then cards that are not reprinted, you still can use the old cards in tournaments that would be in that game mode of like Legacy, or we could call it, like I said, like the old generation or whatever you want to call it. Logically, power creep will rotate a lot of cards naturally. Logically, power creep will rotate a lot of cards naturally. And that becomes one of the absolute biggest issues, right? I mentioned that a little bit earlier in the video. Power creep over the years will make it where if you have 20,000 cards in your pool, in your card pool that are accessible, but literally 18,000 of them are just dead cards, well, why wouldn't you do block rotations at that point? It's like, I have 18,000 dead cards in here. You know what I mean? That's just kind of, that's the way that I see that. Again, people might not agree, and I totally respect that. So please, again, let's keep this as civil as possible. And I really hope people don't take this the wrong way, guys. I just want to be able to answer these fully for people. Okay, but then let's do the last sentence here. But having access to niche old cards makes deck building much more appealing. Absolutely, like I said, and that's the best part about these alternate game modes like Commander and Magic. You can use all of these old cards still, even in a rotating format. You just have to use it in the appropriate game mode, while keeping the entirety of the game still balanced for the competitive players at the highest level. Okay, next one. Really good comment. Okay, this is two of them because they were right next to each other. Okay, so rotation is a turnoff in my opinion because I spent money on cards I want to play with. I don't want to be forced into retiring my favorite deck because the cards rotated. It's why I stopped playing Pokemon. Okay, well, understand that. I totally understand that idea. But at the same time, I think most of the cards will be reprinted. Okay, most of like the core strong cards you'd want to reuse that are not just commons, those will probably be reprinted. But if you're into like a very specific niche deck, like no one else plays but you, yeah, that is a downside to it. However, think about how strong that deck would be in a format like Commander, where you can add all of these other cards to it, or Modern, or Legacy, or whatever you might call it. Someone else said, sadly, rotation doesn't solve power creep. It can slow it down some, but there is always power creep. Yeah, it's not about... It actually does solve power creep. See, so there's a misconception in this comment. They're saying sadly rotation doesn't solve. It does solve power creep because of what you said. It can slow it down some, but there's always power creep. That's a correct. The second part is correct as well, but I think it's a misunderstanding, or it might be a language barrier. You cannot stop power creep. It has to exist. But how are you going to solve it? How are you going to solve the problem of power creep? And that's through block rotations. It solves the problem with power creep. It makes it where, like, okay, this card is, if things are becoming too strong, no problem. You actually flatline it from there until those cards rotate out, and then when those cards have rotated out, you get to go from there, and you can fix it in that way. So again, I think this comment is probably meant well. They're saying sadly rotation doesn't solve power creep. I guess you'd have to define what you mean by solve it. You can't prevent power creep, but it solves the issue of power creep. You have to have power creep. At least that's my argument. If there's not any power creep, why would you ever buy new cards, right? And I think this person probably agrees with me on that. Power creep does have to exist, and it does help, keep the game healthy, right? It keeps the game growing. But I think it does solve the problem that power creep introduces of like, okay, well, how do we deal with this? Well, rotations is the only way to do it. Rotate or just banning cards, but that's the same idea, right? Rotations is banning an entire set of cards and pushing it to another format that's more casual, where it doesn't matter as much. Whereas with the standard constructed player base, you want them to have it as balanced a game as possible, because that's where a lot of the spectator eyes come in on the game, and they're like, oh wow, that was a really cool looking game, and so on and so forth. But yeah. So real quick, just to summarize these, the rotations will turn off in my opinion because I spent money on cards I want to play. Again, rotation doesn't just get rid of every card. That just doesn't happen. And especially the top dollar cards, the staples, most of those get reprinted. And if they don't get full on reprinted, then they get nerfed in a way that Bandai thinks would be better for the future of the game in that next rotation. Not to say they're going to do this, guys. We don't know what Bandai's going to do. I'm just giving you an example. That's why they stopped playing Pokemon, which I totally understand, by the way. I totally respect and understand. If that's something you don't like, I get it. But you do have to remember this, guys. That little devil fruit in the bottom right corner, I didn't make that up. Bandai introduced the block system before the game was made. So if they choose to do that, we'll see what happens. Maybe they'll choose not to ban leaders. Like maybe they'll choose not to make it where leaders rotate out with blocks. Maybe they will. Or maybe they'll just reintroduce the leader in newer blocks to keep it, so that way... In that way, they could actually fix older leaders that were a little overtuned, like maybe they were broken, like Red Purple Law or something, and they could fix them in the future and reprint new ones that are a little bit tuned down. Not like the Red Purple Promo Law. That's a bad example, but hopefully you guys understand what I'm saying. And then just to recap on this one, sadly rotation doesn't solve power creep. It can slow it down some, but there's always power creep. I think it's a misunderstanding of the topic, because it's not about removing power creep. You can't do that, right? If I said that, then I didn't mean it. There is no getting rid of power creep. It is healthy for a game's future. However, how do you mitigate it? How do you balance it? And how do you control power creep? And I think the best answer to that is through rotations. So, okay. I think we got one or two more. So let's see this one here. The block idea is good in general, in my opinion, but they'll need to redesign how they release leaders. A lot of leaders right now rely on cards in older sets, like Calgara, for example. If you get rid of 05, 06, 05 and OP05 and OP06, that deck is unplayable as there isn't enough Shandian Warriors in the newer sets. type locking cards is definitely an issue in this regard. Again, I did answer this one earlier. It's actually not an issue in this specific example, but if you can give another example, I can tell you how to fix that one too. But in this specific example, it's not a problem because Calgara is OP08, right? So in other words, block 2 would be OP05, 6, 7, and 8. So when block 2 rotates out, well, there goes Calgara and all Sky Island and all Shandian Warriors for the most part. There might be a few leftovers depending on what they print in the future, but the point is that's taken care of. It's a self-correcting issue, right? It corrects itself. However, if you were to give me an example, I think in the very first one they were saying, like, I think there were some block 1 cards like Joribani that could search up cards for Joribani in block 2, the leader. That is very easy to fix. All they have to do is realize, like, okay, when block 1 goes out, what is going away? Okay, they're going to be losing their searcher. No problem. We'll just make a starter deck, and we'll reprint the searcher. You see what I'm saying? It would be very easy to fix, especially in the case of Joribani the searcher. All they would have to do is make a beige searcher, right? Like, they could even just reprint a new one, and then when you get into the legacy format, and guys, let me hang on. Let me clarify. When I say a beige searcher, I mean literally reprint Joribani word for word, everything on the card, and then just change the picture and the name to beige. That's it. And have it search up Supernova in the same way, same color, same everything. And now when you get into the Commander style format or the Legacy format, now you have 2 insane searchers for that format, which makes that game mode even funner, right? While still keeping the main game balanced. So again, these might seem like really crazy issues, like, oh no, like that'll get rid of this, this, and this. It's like, yeah, but cards can just as easily be remade, right? Or reprinted or redone or whatever. And then they still become relevant in these other game modes as well. So really good question though, really good stuff. I think there might be one more. Let me see. We got 2 more. Okay. All right, let me zoom in a little bit here. There we go. After reading some of the comments, I think block rotation is a more interesting topic than I thought, because I'm used to rotations in Pokemon. They always reprint staples like VV says, and every block has a new mechanic added. That's really cool, adding new mechanics per block. That's actually really interesting, because that could have been something they did for Yellow with like the Landawano trigger type, and now we're on the Revo Army trigger type. That could have been something very cool that they stuck to, but let me not go too far into that. They've also, with the most recent block, more or less kept power creep down. So I was, for the most part, in favor of the idea. But in One Piece, due to leader type and color locking, a lot of leader or archetypes will stop being functional when a block is rotated out. That, by the way, that is kind of the point of block rotations, right? Because it can kind of let them start from square one and bounce it from there for the constructed, standard style of play. So when a block is rotated out, are those players supposed to wait for, excuse me, for the next EB set to bring support to their leaders? Well, EB can definitely be used for that, but no, they could use starter decks, EB, and just whatever new deck's coming out, right? Because they could be coordinated with the block rotation. It would be very simple to solve. And a lot of cards that are leader locked are essentially unplayable when their leader from an older set gets rotated out. Again, not a problem. You can just reprint the leader. Yeah, like literally the exact leader, you can just reprint it if they want it to be a staple leader that they really like the way it's being played and the way that it how do I say this? The way that it adds to the format. Plus, the cost of One Piece is much higher compared to Pokemon. I don't know about that. Is that true? Because I think I've seen decks now in One Piece that are like $40, $20. It would be a more of a burden financially. I think that this statement, I think, is largely dependent on what deck you're building, because a lot of One Piece decks now are like $100. They've really, and we're not talking about Altarts. If you're going for Altarts, that is something else entirely. But by the way, when it comes to Altarts, when they reprint new cards in the future, these staples, and they have new art on them, the original Altarts start going for a lot more money, right? Or they have the potential to go for much, much more money. It would be a lot more of a burden financially. I'll come back to that in a second. After each rotation, I can easily tweak my Pokemon deck since I have access to all the cards, and they're all super cheap. But I can't see how that works with One Piece. Well, I can see how that won't work with One Piece. Well, again, I don't know which cards are super overpriced right now in One Piece, other than the one fiasco we're having right now with EB01. That needs to be resolved, but that has nothing to do with future rotations or not. That just needs to be resolved, in my opinion. But again, yes, there are certain cards that are super expensive in One Piece, like, let's just say, like, secret rarity cards. However, they can always just reprint these cards. It will always come back to that for me. If it is a card that it seems like a lot of people are using, the money is high, like the price on it is high, that's actually the best thing that we can do is reprint the card in the future to drive down the price of the card for the casual players or the competitive players. But then also it drives up the price of the collector's original art piece. So it kind of, again, it kind of fixes itself. And I don't think that, I think this is a non-issue. You know, the idea that like, well, how do we get, all right, let me just go back through it like real fast. Right, here's restart. But in One Piece, due to leader, type, and color locking, a lot of leader or archetypes will stop being functional when a block is rotated out. Yes, it can be, or if Bandai wants that archetype to remain, they can very easily just reprint the cards they want to keep. Or how's about this, what you just said there? Certain cards are type locked or color locked or leader locked. They can reprint the card where it's not leader locked, type locked, or color locked in the new blocks. And then they don't have to worry about there being two of that card because it's gone in standard. Whereas in, you know, a secondary game mode, you'd have access to two options, which would make it very fun. Okay. So next on here, are those players supposed to wait for the next EB set to bring support to their leaders? The answer is no. Like I said, they could just reprint the cards needed, right? Again, this is a very easy problem to solve. They could just reprint what's needed. And a lot of cards that are leader locked are essentially unplayable when their leaders from an older set gets rotated out. Well, that's assuming the leader even stays out. If the leader's been around and now they're on, you know, and most of their cards are gone, that leader's probably going to be rotated out as well. And at that point, if Bandai did want to keep it, if they're like, you know what, I really like the way Jewelry Bonnie is. Let's use the Supernova package because I think that one's really applicable to what we're saying because it's kind of spanned across 8 sets now. I think they could very easily be like, you know what, I really like the way Jewelry Bonnie is in the format. I think it adds a lot to the format, to the color identity of green, and to the Supernova package. So what we'll do is we'll reprint that leader. I mean, word for word, reprint it in the new set. Or make it into a starter deck that has the new set symbol at the bottom right to make it legal. There are so many ways for Bandai to very easily solve an issue like that. Would they do it? Again, we don't know. This is all speculative, guys. We're just theory crafting, but it'd be very, very easy to take care of. And a lot of cards are leader locked, okay, rotated out, plus the cost of one piece is much higher. Again, that part, it depends on the card, but I think the cards that are super expensive, those are the cards that Bandai would actually want to reprint, right? Because they know those cards are good, they know that those cards are successful, and they need to be staples because of that. So again, that would actually help us more than anything, right? These cards that are super expensive, if block rotations happen and then they get reprints later as staples in future blocks, that would drive the price down across the board for everything except the original alt art stuff, because that's the original stuff for the collectors then. That would actually be really good for the game, in my opinion. Okay, and I think that's about it. Yep, and then Pokemon. They were talking about Pokemon at the end here. They're all cheap cards, but I can see how that won't work for One Piece. Again, I think most One Piece cards are pretty cheap. Maybe not as cheap as Pokemon cards, but I mean, we're seeing decks like Reiju now and Nami that are under $50 USD, and a lot of the cards in these decks are pretty cheap. There's just always a few cards that are a little expensive, which is true for most TCGs, with Pokemon being one of the rare exceptions where almost no card is super, super expensive, not counting alt arts, obviously. Okay, great question. Really good question there. Okay, last one. Here we go, guys. Let me, it's kind of, I have to frame it in this way, guys, because I can't manipulate it with this screen. This person said, Bandai doesn't do rotations, guys. Deal with it. Why would you want to invalidate half your collection anyway? Formats eating into each other is what is killing Magic. I don't know if this was like meant to be more of like a joke comment, but I did want to address it. Number one, I think the multiple formats is the only thing saving Magic. Especially when you look at how Commander's doing. Commander is exploding right now. The casual Magic the Gathering like player base is massive, and they love the alternate formats. Now, it's hurting the competitive scene in Magic, I think. Like, I think only Modern and Standard are the competitive. I think there's competitive EDH, and that goes crazy. I'm not going to get into that. But I do think they're starting to get back into Standard a little bit into Constructed. And I think that's doing very well as well. But I think the main thing keeping Magic alive right now is the player base. Someone correct me in the comment section if I'm wrong, but I'm pretty sure that is like the one thing keeping Magic as big as it is right now with all these Universe Beyond sets and stuff like that. The casual players love this. They see, oh man, Warhammer, I love Warhammer. And they came out with a new set for it and they buy into it. Oh, Lord of the Rings, and now they're doing Marvel stuff. And I understand, guys, I understand this is also a very hot topic in that area. I don't want to get into all the this is One Piece. This is still the One Piece channel, right, guys? But I just want to say that I don't think that's necessarily true. I think the formats in Magic are actually very beneficial. The multiple formats are really good for it. And then this Bandai does not do rotations. I have no idea. But the deal with it comment, I don't understand what the mean-spirited idea is there. Like, why would you say something like that? I'm not the one who came up with the block rotation. Bandai did. Like for One Piece, I'm not the person who made up block rotations for it. Bandai put the block number in each one. Now, what are they going to do with blocks? I have absolutely no idea. They might not do anything with it, right? I have absolutely no idea. But I can tell you what, if Bandai doesn't do rotations, they just put that block number down there for no reason at all. For absolutely no reason. It's just a block number down there. Maybe it's for cataloging. Who knows? Again, I'm not the one who said it. And then why would you want to invalidate half your collection anyway? Well, again, guys, half your collection will be invalidated, period, over time. Okay, all the commons, uncommons, and rares, whatever you bought, those are just invalidated when you buy them, right? Because those cards typically don't sell for a lot unless the game goes way down the road, right? And the game survives for a long time and stays competitive. And one of the best ways to do that, from what we've seen from successful models like Magic the Gathering and Pokemon, the best way to do that is through rotations. I don't think it is a coincidence that Pokemon and Magic the Gathering are the most successful TCGs in the world right now, and they both use rotations. I mean, it's one thing to be like, oh, I don't know if that'll work or not. It's like, well, no, it does work. It's just a matter of how well it's done, how well it is handled, right? How well is the company dealing with the game going to handle it? Okay, why would you want to invalidate? I went over that. Okay, so again, thank you for this comment. Even though, like I said, when people say stuff like this, deal with it. It's very tempting, to just not deal with it, right? It's very tempting to just ignore comments like this. But guys, I really try to. I read every comment. I might not respond to every comment, but I read every comment, even if it is kind of like in this tone right here. Deal with it. It's like, hey, what happens if Bandai introduces block rotations in the future? What then? Just deal with it. You know what I mean? I just don't like that kind of attitude. Let's try to keep the toxicity levels low, and that's one of the main reasons I wanted to add this comment, guys. Let's keep the toxicity low. Let's keep it away completely. The negativity. There are ways to say comments like this that don't have to come across this way. And who knows? There might be a language barrier. That's fine, but let's try to refrain from this kind of, especially this kind of logic, guys. The formats eating into each other is what is killing Magic. I don't know if that's true or not. Someone tell me what you think. But from what I've seen now that I'm back into TCGs, guys, on a Friday night where I live, Friday Night Magic, the FNM has been known for a long time as Friday Night Magic, right? And where I live, they have like, I don't know what, 60 or 70 Magic the Gathering players in pods every single Friday. Not playing Standard, not playing Constructed. They're playing Commander, right? And that is a game mode that would not exist if it weren't for rotations, like I was saying earlier in the video. So I think the alternate formats are really helping Magic out. And then when you look at their Pro Tour scene, it's not Commander. Well, some are, the competitive, I think it's CEDH, competitive Elder Dragon Highlander, something like that. But I think there's also all these other game modes as well. So again, making these blanket statements, they get under my skin a little bit, but at the same time, I love when people comment on my stuff, guys. It just feeds the algorithm, makes my channel, makes the videos look bigger and bigger. So I did at least want to address this, though, because I think there were two things I wanted to mention in here. Number one, about this deal with it type of attitude, guys. Let's please chill with that. There's no reason for that. We're all grown-ups here. And guys, this makes it sound like I'm like, please introduce blocks, please do it. I don't care if they do or not. I mean, I do care, of course. I hope they introduce them because I think it's for the better. It will provide a better future for the game, because we've seen that in Magic, we've seen that in Pokemon, we've seen it firsthand where how successful rotations can be. However, if they don't do it, I'm just going to keep playing the game. It's not like, I don't think anyone's like, begging for Bandai to do this right now. It just makes the most logical sense going forward for them to do that once we get to that point. We're not at that point yet. Please understand that, guys. So it's not a matter of like, oh, deal with this. Like, dude, we don't know what Bandai's going to do. Bandai might introduce the block rotations. They might not. We have absolutely no idea. We'll have to see what happens over time. Okay. Why would you want to invalidate? We already went over that. And then, and again, that's just a misconception, guys. If you go through bulk ancient Pokemon cards, it's all invalidated. They're like, they're super, super cheap. Not all of them. If you get like special rares and stuff, of course, those are super expensive. But the overwhelming majority of all TCG cards that land in your bulk packages or in your bulk boxes, there's almost no value, guys. That's just the nature of any card game, whether there's block rotations or not. It just is what it is. Formats eating into each other is what is killing Magic, and we already talked about that. Okay. I don't agree with that. I don't think it's true. But hey, if you guys can show me some results on that, by all means, I'm willing to see them. Okay, that was a very long topic of the day. Let's go ahead and get straight into these games because I got 3 games on the sim as well now, guys. We got 3 games to go over on the sim, and some of these are pretty long games. So let me go ahead and move the topic of the day stuff out of the way. Let me get my picture up here, and I hope people didn't take that section the wrong way. It wasn't meant to attack anyone. That's why I completely blocked out the names. I just wanted to address some things that I thought were really interesting points, a lot of them. Those were some really interesting points, but I think a lot of people are misunderstanding how block rotations work, and especially how they can be handled successfully. That's the main thing. But again, guys, if there's no block rotation, I'm going to keep playing One Piece until it's unplayable. That's where I'm at right now, guys. I will continue to play One Piece until it is unplayable, and if there's no block rotations in the future, I'm not losing any sleep over it. Do I think it's better for the game? Yes, I've mentioned it multiple times, right? But if they don't introduce the block rotations, oh well, okay, I just keep playing a game as long as it's good. Okay, so now let's focus up. Let's get into this game. We got a game of ST14 Luffy versus Purple Magellan. Okay, OP0, I think this was OP01 or OP02 Magellan. Okay, let me make sure the volume is off. The speed is on 2x, and we are good to go, guys. All right. So the list I'm running today is not my own creation. This is from a top 16 list that just happened in Europe very recently. I think it was sometime in November. I don't know the person's name off the top of my head, but I will link it down in the comment section below when we get to it. So I'm going to swing for 5 into 5 here. They swung for 8 into 5. I just take it. I'm going second. I'm going to play out the Kuzan. I swung for 5. They're going to use the Magellan. We expected that on curve, going first for them. They swing for 6. We 2K counter out. We don't want to go too low too quickly. Excuse me. Okay. Right here, we're going to swing for 5. Actually, I think I might not swing this turn with the Magellan. I'm going to, because I see that they can't do Poly next turn, so I don't have to worry about my Magellan, about my Kuzan going anywhere. And just in case, we're going to play out the Sabo, fix our hand a little bit, fill up our trash a little bit for when we draw a Gecko Moria, and move on from there. I think I should have trashed the brand new, by the way, guys. I think the brand new would have been a slightly better target. Okay, well, he does it, or excuse me, he gets rid of my Rebecca for me and another card. I get the Gecko from life, coming in for 7. We'll block 2K counter out, and here we go. Let's see what happens here. We have 7 Dawn because of the Gecko, or excuse me, because of the Magellan. We're down. We would be on an 8 Dawn turn right now, but we're on a 7 because of the Magellan. Very strong card. We're not going to swing into the Magellan yet, guys. I don't want to go down. I want to go at least to 8 Dawn to 9 Dawn before I actually have to worry about those Magellans. Okay, I think they play out another Magellan here, if I'm not mistaken. If I remember this game correctly, they play out another Magellan. Very annoying. Very, very annoying. Okay, no, it's not this turn. So let's see what happens. They play out an X-Drake. I have to trash a card. They Dawn -1. They're swinging for 7. They're swinging for 7 and 7. They have a blocker. I'm going to block myself here and use a 2K counter. And now it is my turn. I'm on 9 Dawn. What do we want to do with this? That's a tough question. That's a very tough question. I look in the trash here because I'm thinking about using my Gecko Moria, and I do have targets, but the issue is I have a full board. I don't really just want to get rid of these characters on my board. I don't think there's a reason for that. So I'm going to attach a Dawn there. I'm going to swing 7 into 6, and let's see if he wants to lose this card right here so that, then I lose 2 Dawn. But that's a big attacker right now, guys. That's a massive body on the board, and he doesn't want to lose bodies right now because he sees my Jack. Like, whenever I attack in here, so swing 6 into him again, -4 to this would... Okay, that worked out perfectly for me, guys. I didn't actually want to KO the Magellan. Understand that. I wanted to get rid of bodies off the board, and if it had to be the Magellan, then it had to be the Magellan because that's all I could attack into. I did not want to actually attack into it. I just needed to get bodies off the board, but I would at least still go back to 9 Dawn on the next turn. Now, he used his blocker to get out of that attack for me, so I didn't have to lose any Dawn. Okay, perfect. I just want bodies off the board. I've got 2 blockers, and I'm going to pop the X-Drake with the Jack that I already showed was on the board. Okay, so here we go. So now they do have a Magellan, but I have 2 blockers if needed, and I have a Gecko Moria coming this turn. I have 2 2K counters in hand. I'm actually in a very good spot. Okay, swinging for 8 into 5 there, I'm actually not even too worried to lose that card, but since I know he wants it now, I'm like, okay, yeah, go ahead and attack into it again. We lose 1 Dawn there, but we'll be on 10 Dawn next turn anyway. No problem. Okay, we will go ahead and counter. I think we will, or actually just let it go because we can bring it back this turn with Gecko Moria if we need to. We're up to 10 Dawn now. Let's see what we decide to do here. In this situation here, I think it's best to just keep eating this board up. Because even if I KO both Magellans now, I'll lose 4 Dawn, go down to 6, but I'll be back up to 8 the next turn. Going to play out the Gecko. Going to go ahead and grab Rebecca and Brand New. Top 3 search with Brand New. Grab an Ice Age. Rebecca. I'll snag back a 2K counter. And then I think I'm probably going to cheat out the Brook here just to put more pressure on the board. Doesn't really matter, though. I'm going to go 6 into 6. -5 there. Boom, he hits that. I have to drop 2 Dawn. No problem. We're going to swing for 7 into life. We're going to pop the Magellan, and we're off to the races here, guys. Waiting for a trigger. No trigger. Draw a card, trash a card, KO a 3 or less. It was at 0 because of the Ice Age, or excuse me, because of the Kuzan. And guys, we have full control of this board. He can't pop anything except the Brook, and I think he's about to give up here. He does. So he tries to get rid of the game's over, right? If you cannot get rid of my Kuzan now, anything you drop, I'm going to pop with the combo of Jack plus Kuzan. That will pop a 7 by itself every turn. Every turn that's popping a 7 while I'm swinging for 5, and I have a Gecko Moria, and I have my leader swing. It's just it's at the point of no return there. Okay, next game, we got a pretty long game here versus Red Yellow Sabo against the best deck in the format. Red Yellow Sabo. No, I'm just kidding. But seriously, guys, Red Yellow Sabo is still a very solid list, and this pilot did a pretty good job. They did a pretty good job piloting it, so this is a long game. I'll try not to pause it at all. Okay, they're going to swing for 8 in here, 8,000. I'm going to take that. I don't want to use too many cards early on because red and yellow doesn't have any way to punish the hand size currently. So I'm not worried about going up to like a 10-card hand here. Okay, I'm going to play out the Rebecca. We're just going to cheat out of Tashigi here. I'm trying to get some board presence, and at the same time, I'm trying to also get him to use removal in hand. There's a lot of things I'm trying to do with this play right here. I need to fill up my trash. I have Gecko in hand. There's a lot of things going on. Uses Nami. And it looks like they're going to swing 6. They use the Nami, the ST01 Nami. They're going to probably swing 6 into 4 here. As you can see, I'm kind of pointing over that with the mouse during the game. I don't care at all. You can have that. It works as a 2K counter. Beautiful. Okay, so we're going to swing for 6 into 5 here. Let's see if he gives me a 2K. He does because he's running Nami. We're going to play out the Sanji. Sanji popping Nami. Guys, totally not lore accurate. Completely not lore accurate, right? But yeah, Sanji just absolutely destroyed Nami. Pause. That didn't sound right. But we got that over with. And now they're going to play out. They're going to swing in for 8. I'm going to take that, and they're going to play out a Kikinojo. So they did. So there was a slight play mistake there, in my opinion. I think they probably should have only swung for 7. By the way, I would have taken the 7 as well. I don't have any counter in my hand. I would have taken the 7, and then they can attach a Dawn to the Kikinojo and put it to life, and they get to counter 1 free attack, right? Because when I attack in, it just totally negates the attack, and I'm at 3 or less life, so the Kikinojo can come straight into play from the effect. Okay, but I'm not worried. I'm not too worried about that either way. Either way would have worked for them, but I think it would have been technically more accurate for them to play out the Kikinojo and throw it into life if it could come back into play for free. Swing 5, swing 6. Okay, we have 8 Dawn here to play with. Or was it 9? I think it might be 9 Dawn, excuse me. No, it was 8. So we're going to play out the Brook, play out the Sabo, do some fixing from our hand here. I'm trying to get some decent targets in my trash, right? That's what I'm trying to do so I can play out some really high-value Gecko Morias. Okay? And I'm also trying to fill up the board at the same time, right? They play out another ST01 Nami. A lot of people really like the ST01 Nami, and I think it's a good card, but I'm not a huge fan of it. I'm not going to lie, guys. I'm not a really big fan of the card. I just think that the deck space is a little too tight right now for Red Yellow Sabo. I'm going to swing for 7 into 6 here. I can just let this go, to be honest. Yeah, that's fine. Just let it go. Play out the Zoro. Okay. So I think they also kind of mess up here a little bit, in my opinion. So they're going to swing for 7. Okay, 8 with Zoro. Okay. I'll take it. Yep, and now they can push the Zoro back to life, swing for 9 with the Kikinojo, and I don't want to go too low. I'm going to block out here. I don't want to go too low. That's fine. And let's see what we have to do here. So this is actually a very tough position. This is a very, very tough position, and I have a lot of plays I can make here. I want to play a Gecko no matter what. That was the whole reason of us playing out our deck like that and doing what we did. Going to use brand new first, grab a 2K counter. I'm going to get the Rebecca effect. I'm going to snag this. Going to play out a Brook to pop that. And now we've got a few things we need to do here. I think I need to get this Kikinojo off the board. That's kind of what's going through my head right now. I'm going to swing for 7 first, see what they do. They take it. I know that that's Zoro in their hand. Ice Age, and we're just going to swing with the Brook and say go ahead and attack it if you want to. They get to gain the life back. No big deal. Some people might have wanted to KO the Kikinojo first and then see what, just chance a trigger. But since I knew he was not going to get a trigger body into play, I'd rather him have the Zoro, even though he can play it out and have rush with it this turn. Okay, let's see what they do. They're going to swing 5 into 4. I don't really care about that card too much, guys. I have another Gecko Mori that can play if needed. They play out of Shanks. I might need to, right? So that's pretty good. And let's see. That Shanks is very annoying. I have to say that Shanks is very, very annoying here. But we're probably just going to have to play around it for the time being. I just don't have a good answer in my hand for it. I do a brand new first to see if I could get an Ice Age. I do get a Kuzan, which is one step closer to getting rid of a Shanks. But am I going to have time for all that? I don't know. The answer is I'm not sure about all that. Okay, so let's see what happens here. My board is not exactly menacing, but I do want to keep the pressure on my opponent. We're going to go ahead and play out the Sabo here. Draw 2, trash 2. We'll get rid of the Kuzan. That just doesn't seem realistic, so I just dropped it. And right here, I can just swing for 5, swing 7. Or swing 5, swing 5, 5, 5. Okay. We'll swing 5. Again, this is just eating cards from their hand or eating cards from life. Swing 5 here. I technically should have swung with the what's his name last. I should have swung with the Brook last, but that's okay. Okay, they're considering a trigger right now. Let's see what they get. They get a Sanji. Seems good. Swing 5. They have 2 cards left in hand. They're going to take it. They're down to 1 life. They have 3 cards. They get another trigger, and there goes the Zoro. I know they don't have a Zoro in hand anymore, so they could have 2 2K counters in their hand for all I know. All right, here we go. Shanks is a menace. That card is going to get whatever it wants for the next few turns. Okay. Here we go. Now, they cannot KO anything on my board with the Lindbergh, so that is at least in my favor a little bit, right? Like, that is at least a little bit in my favor. Gotta check the speed, guys. Yep. This guy's deep in the tank. They need to make sure they get this done correctly. I am not saving that card, right? That card is not... There's no way I can save that. I'm just going to let it go. I'm going to use my life as a resource right here if I need to, but I can't go under 1 life, because if they have a Rush Luffy, then I'm done for, even with 2, 4, 6, 8, 10K counter in hand. I don't want to risk it. Okay, 7 into 3. You can have the brand new. I considered using the Rebecca here, but it's like, well, why not? Well, why not just block the next one if I need to? Because it can't be KO'd, right? Like, my card can't be KO'd here. Okay, Sanji is now at 7,000 power. Sanji's at 7K. Let's see what he decides to do. Again, this guy's deep in the tank. They're swinging 12 and 12, okay, or 12 and 13. So I'm like, okay, well, that's annoying. We're going to give him the blocker, make him commit. Okay, 13. We can take this one. Not too bad, but I can tell he has a Luffy in hand right there. That's what's going through my head right now, is like, this guy's trying to get me down to 0 and just take me out with a Luffy. I have a ton of counter power in hand, but that's not, you know, that's not necessarily going to save me, right? Like, there's a lot more I need to do right here. Okay, so what can I do? What's the situation here? How am I going to get around this? We're in an absolutely horrifying position. We can pop this with Sanji. As you can see, I'm kind of mousing over that, considering that. That is one decent play. I'd have to attach 1 Dawn to do that. I need to attach 1 Dawn, period, right? That just needs to happen. We'll swing for 6 and see what he does. He could take this and get Lindbergh into play. Okay, he does take it. Now, right here, I'm like, well, wait a minute. Okay, he did not use the trigger, which was actually very smart, right? So what would have happened, pause, guys, unless this last card in his life is the 0-cost event, if he had taken that hit and played out the guy, played out the Lindbergh, I was going to swing for 7 with Sabo because he only has 1 card left in hand. And if that goes through, I'm loading everything on brand new and swinging for face, right? Swinging for lethal because it would have been 7 plus it would have been for 10. So, you know, that was, he actually played that very intelligently because I was going to go all in if he had not. So I'm like, okay, well, now we're going to go ahead and get rid of the guy. I have a blocker still. He's a 6-cost blocker, so Nami cannot take him out. I play out the Sanji. My board's getting wide. I can get out of an attack for sure. I've got 10,000 power and counter in hand. I have 1 life and a blocker. He only has 2 attacks. But hey, Red Yellow Sabo always has more than 2 attacks, guys. Always. All right, let's see what they do here. This is a tough board he's looking at. Like, this is a board that he has to be concerned with. Okay, they're going to swing for 8. We're going to 2K and go to 9 and just call it a day there. They play out Zoro. They're going to smash in for 9. Okay. I'm going to have to give him a blocker here, I think. So, hear me out, guys. One thing I could do is counter out with this blocker, and then I could have just countered out, period, and just let him attack in with his last hit there and try to go for lethal this turn. And that was probably the more accurate play, but you never know what someone's going to have as that last life card, guys. It could be you're the one who should disappear. It could be a Sanji blocker. There are so many different options that could just throw a wrench in your plan. Okay. But I'm still having to try to deal with this this stinking guy on the board here, the Shanks, man. The Shanks is just beating me down. So I think what I'm going to have to do here is see what we can get away with. We'll swing for 7. Let's see if this goes through. If it goes through, we can try to go for lethal. Okay, 0 cost 3K. I already don't like the idea of going for lethal. I can technically math the lethal here, but the problem against red-yellow is that last life card could be you're the one who should disappear, or a beige, or a blocker, a Sanji blocker. So I have to play this game so precisely accurate, or I'll just lose, like, on accident, okay? So brand new search first, I get a 2K counter. Rebecca, I'm going to grab a 2K counter, and then I think I'm just going to pass the turn here and say next turn. I make a small play mistake there. I forgot to attach a Dawn to my leader at the end. That was just a whoopsie daisy. I meant to attach 1 Dawn to my leader, so that way all my characters go up +1 Dawn. Okay, he's going to swing for 12. We know he's trying to play out the Luffy. Okay, we know that. There's no doubt there. And right here, he's going to swing with Sabo for 6. And I give him a 2K counter, obviously. And then watch this. I think he makes a mistake of his own here. Playing out the Luffy. He's going to swing for everything. Into face. Well, we're going to take it. We can't counter out of it anyway. And that's going to be game. So, guys, pause. Do we have lethal? Do some math here. Depending on what that last card is. Okay, I have to say depending on what the last card is. But on the board, we have lethal now, right? Because those top 2 cards, we know there's 0 counters. So if he has a 2K counter in hand, it doesn't matter. We're going to swing 7, 7, 7, and then everything else on the last guy. And he has no way of getting out of it. This is a math win at this point. Unless he has a you're the one who should disappear, into a you're the one who should disappear, into a beige, into a Sanji or something, you know, some beige or Sanji. Okay, so 7 is going to go through. This is going to be a wrap. Okay, no way to get out of this one. Swing for 7. And now I actually have 2 bodies on the board here. No trigger. Well, that's going to be game. GG. Let's see what it was. It was an ace, was his last card. So that was a fun one. I know some people might have gone for lethal a little bit before then. But guys, if it had hit a beige, if it had hit a you're the one who should disappear, you're frustrated all of a sudden because it's like, I just lost a game I should have won. So you got to be real careful with that. All right, that was the longest game. Don't worry, guys. Next one, this one's a good one as well. This will be the last one versus Red Purple Uta. No crazy matchups here. You know, we were just playing with a fun leader today, guys. I'm showing off a list that is not my creation, but it's by someone who got a top 16 in a recent European regional or treasure cup or something like that. Okay, brand new. I am going second, and I'm getting brand new on turn 1. Kuzan on turn 2. I mean, this is a pretty nice start, guys. This is what it's meant to do, right? Swing 5, and they take it early. Taking it early is crazy, guys. Taking it early as a 4-life leader is crazy if you don't have life gain. Okay, they play out an Ein. Swing for 5. I'm just going to, yeah. I was going to say, if I don't counter out, I feel like it's just a play mistake. They leave 2 Dawn active. I'm like, well, what is that going to be for? Why not swing for the extra on your leader? Maybe that was a play mistake, or maybe they're sitting on a rad beam. We'll swing for 5 here into 5. -4 to the Ein. They take the 5K hit. Guys, again, I'm just like, at this point, I'm like, wait, what? Okay, so we're going to swing in for 5 here. I'm going to swing in for 5. And I think we're going to play out the Rebecca. We're going to snag the Brook. We're going to play out the Brook, pop the Ein. This is the board you're facing now. You know, like this is, and they're at 2 life, guys. This is a horrible situation to be in. They're going to play out the Lin. They have 2 legitimate targets. Who would you push back with Lin in this situation? Personally, I would push back the Kuzan, but I think they choose to push back the Brook, guys. Not that that's a bad pick, but that I think there's a better pick. So right here, I'm actually going to use the Rebecca because I want to be able to fill out my board with Gecko this turn. Or potentially use Jack with Ice Age. There's a lot of other options here. Okay. So I'm trying to do a little bit of math here. The other option is I can go Kuzan, Ice Age, Brook. And that's a nightmare, right? Okay, play that out. Nice, we have another Brook for later. Swing for 5. Okay, no trigger. Ice Age, -4, Brook. And guys, this guy, it doesn't even matter what he plays now, right? I can go -8. Oh, man, he got my guy with Shanks. But I still have it in hand to get rid of this card, too. Okay, I'm going to save this card, right? Because I have Jack in my hand. I can just swing 5, and pop the Shanks here, guys. Okay, so watch this. I'm actually going to try to go for lethal first. We'll swing for 7 into 5 because he has 1 life. I'm like, okay, counter out of that. All right, so we could technically still just go for lethal, but we're just going to get rid of this guy and say next turn. Because, guys, I have 5 life. Okay, guys, I have 5 life in this situation because they gave me a life with the 9 cost. And look at that. They had double 2K counter in hand, and I didn't commit to it. So it's like, I'm going to swing for that. it was going to be swing for 7. Okay, since they couldn't counter out, or since they could counter out, I'll just swing for 5 now, and I'm just going to for sure get rid of your shanks, and we're going to go about the rest of the game that way. So really good stuff there. That was a fun game. I think I was going to go swing, I did swing 7. It was going to be swing 5, play out jack, pop the shanks, attach the final dawn of my leader, swing for 7. Your turn. This is a very solid deck, guys. Very fun to play as well. Okay. All right, guys. So this is the list right here. I'm not going to like try to revise it. I'll run through it and I'll talk about it real quick, but that's it. But this was not my creation. So this, in fact, I think I'll bring it up on the side real quick while you guys are checking it out on the screen right here. Because this was a really solid deck list, guys. I want to give the credit where it's due. I try to always give credit where it's due. Sometimes I don't know off the top of my head, but whenever I do, I always try to show you guys. Okay, yeah, the guy's name was Louis Trincado. And this was from the top 16 regional at Game Maria in Europe. Okay, so let's check this out. Let me make sure you guys can still see everything. Very good. Okay, so here's the leader. Pause and read this if you don't know what he does. It literally just increases the dawn of your characters by +1. And if you have a cost 8 or higher character, he becomes an 6,000 power leader. So it's running 4 Brooks, 2 T-Bones, 4 Kuzans, 3 Surus, 1 Borsalino, 1 Tech Borsalino. I love that. 3 Ishos, 4 brand news, 4 Sabo, 4 Rebecca, 4 Gecko Moria, 3 Perona. That's very techy as well, right? Just hitting people's hands and stuff like that. Very cool. And it's a 4 cost 5K and a 2K counter, and it has cost reduction. Like, this card is just excellent. They're running 4 Jacks, 4 Tashigi, 2 Sanji, and 4 Ice Ages. Guys, this deck is really fun to play, very strong, very competitive. I wonder how well it does in the black-yellow Luffy. I think if there was any tech decisions to be made, you could very easily work something in here to deal with black-yellow Luffy. Like maybe change these out for like the 5 costs. I don't know. This card's so good, guys. I'm not going to lie. Sanji, like, on play, just on curve, like, say you're going second, right? On your 6 Dawn turn, you can attach a Dawn to your leader so he gets this effect. And then, boom, 5 cost, 6K that's popping a 5 cost. Absolutely incredible. And when you start getting cost reduction down with, like, Isho and start following it up with the Jacks, guys, all of a sudden, your Brooks, your Jacks, and your Sanjis just hit, like, almost anything. It's crazy. And remember, guys, the Brooks are recyclable all day with Rebecca and Gecko. Or Gecko, Rebecca, Brooke. And there's just so many ways to recycle. All right, guys, that's it. I hope you all enjoyed. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. Let me go ahead and pull up the playmat page real quick. Okay. Big shout out to everybody who supports the channel. Guys, if you're just liking, subscribing, sharing, commenting, viewing, anything like that, you're helping me out big time. I really, really appreciate it. Big shout out to everybody on the VV Pirates playmat page. Thank you guys so much. And then last but not least, of course, with the patrons, thank you guys as well, just helping out in whatever ways you can. Big shout out to everybody on this page, the VV Pirates patron page. Just donating to the cause, just trying to make it work, trying to keep the dream alive. Okay? All right, guys, I'm done. Can't wait to see the comments on this one about the topic of the day, because I know some people are really passionate about it, and I just hope no one takes it the wrong way, because this is pretty much my last. I probably won't be responding to it anymore. I just wanted to get some things off my chest to make sure people understood where I was really coming from and try to clear anything up like that. Okay? All right. Please do not forget to like and subscribe. Please do not have a completely fumbling over my words right now. If you have any comments, questions, or suggestions, please do not hesitate to put those in the comment section below. All right, till next time, guys. Peace.